Roundtable, where we serve up piping hot debates on the issues that sizzle in China and beyond. I'm Miao and Roundtable says hi, not in the studio, not from the studio, but in a very beautiful province. Roundtable says hi in Guizhou province. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone. You look beautiful today, all of you. I am joined by Yushan and Fei Fei, all wearing magnificent headpieces.
What about me?
Wearing his
I'm not beautiful.
Good old headset, monitoring the processing of the show, making sure the sound quality is good, taking one for the team. But all of the rest of us, we are loud and happy, and our headset says hi.
Hello.
Oh, fancy you.
Very fancy,
expensive
yes.
headsets and noisy and,
Yes.
and brackety.
And for those of you who can actually see us sitting here doing a podcast out of the studio with our very professional gears, we're glad and we're having fun. And we are wearing local traditional costume. We're wearing Miao costume. I like yours, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of low-key, but in a very, I would say, fancy fabric, a little bit of shiny fabric kind of way.
I see,
Quite beautiful.
Sort of the same.
Fei's clothes is green
it's
and
classy.
Yushan, very classy, yes.
Yeah.
Yushan's blue, shiny blue, and I am red.
I don't know. I'm all filled by reflective. I don't know, this little
Silver trinkets.
shaped trinkets that I look like a shiny. I don't know, a doll or something. But
Or a shiny butterfly.
oh, thank you.
Butterfly is the thing of Guizhou. We'll explain later. And this is actually a very important series we're doing here in Guizhou. We are taking you again out of Beijing, out of the studio, to different places in China. We visit different provinces, and this is our first stop. The first stop is Guizhou, and in our special series, China Horizons, in the future, we plan to take you to more places to tell the uncovered, untold stories, to find the big dreams in the smaller towns, to figure out what are some interesting stories, some fascinating skills and crafts we would be able to share with you, our lovely listeners.
This is something we've been intending to do for many years because we somehow have been something similar to what people call armchair critics. We often are cooped up in the studio, we browse the news, we study them, we do research, we try to come up with the somewhat in-depth understanding of the stories happening across the country, in China and around the world, in fact. But we don't feel like, sometimes, things can run dry when we fail to come up with very fresh examples or stories that could somehow prop up our arguments on the show. And this is something that's making us really happy to be able to do this year.
Yeah, see the real deal, tell the real stories, talk to the people on the ground, and that is super fun. And for me, it's even more interesting because this is my first time here in Guizhou province. I've been to, places, but Guizhou is the first time. But I know it's the first time for Yushan as well.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your first impression?
I mean, the first time I came here, at first I didn't notice anything that's obviously different, but once you travel on the road, you'll start to notice that there's no bicycle track on the road. There's only the lanes for cars to drive by, and also there's I see scooters running around, but there's no bicycles because obviously there's like hilly road all over Guizhou province, and no one is ever going to ride a bike up there.
Guizhou is the only province in China that has no plains, no flat lands, only hills.
Yeah.
The only province.
And maybe
had
that's
no
the
idea,
reason that Guizhou is very famous for its bridge building. And I think most of the videos that have got very popular online, especially overseas, see showcasing, the super project from China that line bridges along the mountains. Most of them, I believe, are from Guizhou.
If I'm not wrong, I think Guizhou has the largest number of really high bridges, like from the bridge to the surface of the bridge. It's really up high.
It's a very mountainous part of the country, if not throughout the world, because here in China, in geography terms, we call it the area of Hengduan Shanmai or Hengduan Mountains. The reason why it was named so was because well, in late Qing dynasty. I think it was around the 19th century, if not the early 20th century. So one scientist studied the area, the terrain, and the geology and geography and all, and came up with the conclusion that this is perhaps the Hangduan mountain areas. And the reason why he said that was because the mountains were so many, and they're so there are so many ups and downs. Sometimes the mountains can go as high as 4,000 meters.
Ooh. And
then the valleys can go down as low 1,000 meters below the ground.
Yeah.
Below the ground, in fact. So.
Oh.
So and they're also the tallest mountains, like going up more than 7,000 meters. So the ups and downs and the gap is so huge, and it's in fact also severing the communication with the rest of the country, which is why he thought of this idea of Hengduan, meaning severing. So that it was so bad. The ups and downs were so huge that it was very difficult. It was an inaccessible area of the country, and it was very difficult to communicate with the rest, and therefore the region got its name.
If I can pick a key word from Lai Ming's long speech, the key word would be was. It was a place that is really hard to go to. It was a place that people do not talk to each other living in the province, because the situation has changed definitely when we visit here. To start with, we flew here very smoothly, and then we travel on high-speed rails, we travel on highways, it's very smooth. Still, you know, the roads are with a lot of curves, a little bit hard for me, who suffer from car sickness all the time, yet still, it's quite smooth, I have to say. So
right.
I picked was as the key word. What are some other keywords that you think would fit with Guizhou province? Because it's not your first time, Feifei.
No, but my first time coming to Guizhou was like more than 10 years ago.
Ooh. Notice any difference?
The biggest word for me is change. Because when I came here for the first time, it was more than 10 years ago, and Guizhou isn't as a popular traveling destination as it is today. So when we travel around the province, we go to the city of Guiyang, and also we went to this place as well. It's very quiet.
10 years ago.
10 years ago, you don't see a lot of travelers, especially comparing to its neighbor, the province of Yunnan, which is always famous for its tourism. So, and then if you travel around, you don't see a lot of tourists, and also you don't see a lot of like businesses relying on tourism as well. So sometimes, well, you can see at that time it was enjoyable from an outsider point of view, because you get to see the original, authentic indigenous people's, you know, lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I would argue for the locals themselves, that may not be that of a good story, simply because at that time Guizhou also didn't have as many bridges and also high-speed rails as it has today. So also when I you know, walked around the city of Guiyang yesterday, and I just see the massive crowds in the old city center, and young people going to bars, enjoying coffee. And also, do you know coffee is also one of the landmarks of the city of Guiyang?
Really?
Yeah, the locals recommend a lot of coffee shops to me, and recommend must try some of them at least. So you can see that the lifestyle is changing, and also the province is turning into something new and something really modern, but also still has its own features. As you know, Guizhou has a lot of ethnicity groups, and also has its own very unique cultures. And I think also with my trip this time, I see a lot of the more higher tech part of Guizhou, which I can share later, but it's definitely a big shock to me. It's about the change that the province has been through.
We'll totally return to the high-tech part, but I want to tag on a little bit. Since I talked to someone living here in this village, we're going to talk a little bit about where we are currently a bit later after sharing this. I talked to him, and he said that because of the pandemic period of time, people lost almost 3 years of traveling freely and traveling as much as they want. So the willingness of going to different places, enjoying local culture, local tourism, local landscape is higher than ever, which is why last year, the year 2024, the number of tourists received the total tourism expenditure increased by 10.4% and 13.3% respectively, and the number of inbound oversight tourists received increased by 81%.
Ooh.
A lot of people come to Guizhou and go to different places, and this is one of the most popular destinations. We are in the Xijiang Miao village groups.
Yeah, this coincides with my observation compared to my earlier visits to this province. My experience with Guizhou dates back as early as 2019, and already back then I was impressed by the infrastructure that I was able to experience. Unlike many people who might be a little older, who might think that Guizhou, because of its geography, could be a very remote and isolated area of the country. My experience of renting a car and driving around on the superhighway was very pleasant, because all the highways were almost all new, and the facilities, the service areas, and even the bathrooms were very clean. So that was my impression. And then my second time when I came here to Xijiang Qianhu Miao village, this is somehow the biggest Miao village or Miao congregation in Asia, if not in the entire world. And so it's very popular, but my second time was in 2020. It was during the COVID pandemic, and so tourism was hit. And so this time, 5 years later, my second visit to the village, my impression is busier. And that is compared to many years ago. I see a lot more people. We're recording this 2 days after a national holiday, and you would expect that people may have enjoyed their holiday. They may have come
The peak is
back.
over.
This is a work day. People are not supposed to be hanging around, but as from the noise that you guys are able to hear, we are recording on the terrace of a restaurant, and you can see people walking by us near a road that's scarcely 5 meters away, and they're stopping to watch us. They're shouting and cheering. So it's more crowded to the place, to a point that I was asking the staffers earlier on with a little worry. With the surge in tourism numbers, are they able to handle? And they said, no problem, we can handle 50,000 people on a daily basis.
Yes, and guess how many people are there here today? Around 10,000 people today are visiting. 10,000 people are visiting here this Xijiang Qianhu Miao village, or Xijiang 1,000 households Miao village. It's too busy that we'll have to do the show around 10 o'clock in the evening because it's too busy during the day, and also because we want to show you guys the beautiful background behind us. The tiny little dots, the dots of lights you see behind us, are one household after another. 1,001 apparently, according to the name.
More than 1,000, in fact. It's around 1,500 households, and population more than 6,000.
Besides that, since we're here, do you guys know a little bit about this, for instance, village, or this? Now the village is almost turning into a professional scenic spots with a lot of different activities, a lot of different experience that you can enjoy. The experience include one of something that fascinates me the most, that is intangible cultural heritage. So have you ever tried any?
Well, the headpiece is one. Like we're trying.
It's huge.
Yeah, and also I think the Miao style basically is very popular internationally. A lot of the fashion brands all come to some Miao gathering places and looking for their inspirations when they're looking for new design for the new season. And so it's like a treasure house for designer ideas, but just give us some notice, or give us some credits. Yeah.
And are there any more specific examples of Miao intangible heritage products gaining global attention?
Batik?
Batik?
Yeah, batik is a technique to
type of
dye fabric. So the way you do it is you use beeswax. You warm it up until it's liquid, and you use something like a knife to draw on a piece of cloth. And so the beeswax will merge into the cloth, and then you somehow put the cloth into indigo, a tank of indigo, and when you lift it, when it's done dyeing, when you lift it up, when it's dried, then the patterns can be removed by warming, heating the fabric, so the wax will go away, and so the part that was previously covered by wax will be left blank, and you can draw patterns with the beeswax. So it's a very, in fact, it's getting more fashionable. I can see people wearing that kind of patterns and cloth fabric designed with such technique outside of the region, in Beijing, in fact.
I've tried a little bit of intangible cultural heritage skills. Well, like Fei Fei said.
Silversmithing?
Yes, silversmithing is something quite cool. Lai Ming has pointed out multiple times that the heritage we're wearing is very tangible, yet the intangible part is about the skills, it's about the actual techniques used to craft these silverware. And Miao silverware, Miao silver ornaments are very important. It is a very important part of the Miao cultural, intangible cultural heritage. I tried a little bit. I tried to hammer the silver. I was told I would be able to hammer a silver stick into thinner silver stick.
Okay.
And I tried it for 5 minutes, and I was like, it's not changing. How long does it take to do that? And they're saying, well, 2 or 3 hours.
So we don't
And
have
then
the final product.
No, then I move on to the next technique. The next one is quite interesting. It's engraving. You use a little chisel, and you use a tiny little hammer to hammer on the chisel, and it will leave marks on the silverware or silver plate or silver stick or whatever you have.
I can see how some of the patterns on your headdress is done with engraving.
Engraving is cool because you get to engrave any patterns or characters or flowers or anything as you want, as you wish, and it's not that hard per se. If you're interested, you can check out the video I made. I carved out, I used the wrong word. I made out a Chinese character with that skill, a very bad looking one, but still you can recognize it if you know Chinese characters. It was really fun. And I asked the teacher, the master, well, my teacher, master of that, in that silver shop, I asked him, how long does it take for someone to learn the technique that can make their own silverware? Guess how long?
5 years.
Well, I'm guessing 5.
1 day.
Oh,
If you want to go, if you tell them what you want to make, as long as it's not this, you get to actually, by saying this, I mean my huge and beautiful and loud, noisy
and loud and valuable headdress.
If you're not trying to make something like that, if you're looking for something simpler and customized, it takes around half a day or 1 day to finish, with the help, of course, of the master. That's how easy it is, and that is why they are including this experience, this interactive activity into the entire traveling experience. You go to a shop, you spend some time, you get your very own customized personal ornament or souvenir, and you take it away. And you guys are not wrong. If you want to be a professional craftsman of silverware, it takes 3 years to know all the 50 different techniques.
50.
I have experienced 2 or 3 today. Didn't master any, but there are 50. And if you want to be someone who can teach people in these locations, it takes around 5 to 10 years. And if you want to be called a intangible cultural inheritor with the skills that are valuable and recognized and should be protected, it's hard to count the years, because it has to be talent plus hardworking plus dedication and a real passionate heart for the technique. So that's silverware.
Silversmithing really was an important part of the Miao lifestyle, because the Miao people, they were living in the mountains. They were always on the move, looking for greener pasture, and so they prefer to transform their assets into more portable forms. So, and they also are a little bit showy people. They would like to brag about their wealth if they could. So one way they try to brag about it is to try and make their wealth very expensive into very expensive silverware. So one of the ways they like to brag about into silverware, a whole set of silverware for the daughters of the family and the women of the family, so that when they walk around sounding all tingly and noisy, people know, oh, this is a family that's doing well, that's comfortable, that's really, making their ends meet and enjoying their life, and very successful.
Just to clear the air, they do not wear like this and walk around on the streets every day. In case you are wondering, it is ceremonial. The very fancy, very shiny and loud ones with the headsets, it's ceremonial. And even we see, even for men, Lai Ming is wearing a traditional Miao, traditional Miao costume as well. And
there's some silver buttons.
Clothes, yeah, you've got silver buttons, and if you're wearing the whole set, there should be also a necklace. A choker kind of necklace or any kind of necklace around.
Like the one you're wearing across my chest.
So even for men, it's still something quite extravagant for ceremonies, for sure.
I'd love to see Lai Ming try that one on. Yeah. To showcase. Just try that one on to showcase.
Sorry, not the showy kind.
But apparently Miao people is quite showy, making this enormous
They enjoy the results of their hard working. I see no problem in that.
Right.
Yeah, and they're really, really proud about their products, their intangible cultural heritage, and the fact that they inherited it from the previous generation and from thousands of years ago. Speaking of the inheritors themselves, me and my colleagues, Ian, we actually met one yesterday at a local museum, and he makes the kind of clay whistle that's really made into different shapes of animals, little birds, little like dogs, and then they color it before baking it to make it solid. And when we approached that inheritor, the first thing he asked us, where do you want me to start introducing it? Do you want to come with me to the mountains to collect the clay? Shall we start from the beginning? Like, that's how they're serious about these skills that they're inheriting. So yeah, they're really proud.
And they're eager to share it with whoever that's got an interest.
I really love that.
That is the ancient part of the story. When you come here and enjoy those and you learn a little bit, get your hands dirty a little bit. But there are some really fascinating modern part as well. They are using different techniques to tell their stories, for instance, not only here in the village, but also online, using different technologies to tell the stories. And also they are inviting people to show them. There are different types of immersive performances. There was one right down in the valley that we're overlooking.
The karaoke sound we just heard.
Yes. That is also making the experience very immersive. And besides that, I believe here in the village, the live museum model also empower local communities, not only culturally, but also economically. When it comes to different types of museums, we think about the public ones, we think about the private ones, but here they call it the family museum.
Sure.
It's the items they collect from generations to generations. Some of them are quite old, some of them are not that valuable, but definitely with a family story. It's kind of like a family endowment, and they have different themes, and they bring those museums into this village, which is now almost a professional scenic spot.
Yeah. There are a few family museums scattered across the village, which is I've had the fortune of visiting a few of them, and one of them, it was a very small family museum. They showcased the belongings of their ancestors, talk about hunting rifles and raincoats made out of straw, and old weaving machines that only the granny of the family knows how to operate,
Sure.
and embroidering utensils and stuff, and cooking utensils. So it really is a record of how they used to live their lives when they were sort of relying on agriculture and hunting to make their ends meet. Now things have changed. Also, they used to have very expensive headsets as well. And this old grandpa proudly showed me the headdress that was passed on from their ancestors, and generously invited me to put them on, and it was a very fond memory. And I think if there's enough time for me to go there again, I will definitely try and to check up on them and see how things are going.
Are these families sort of like ordinary people, not like the big wealthy family
No,
that's
you
normally...
can see from the legacy that they are ordinary people. They're not super rich, they're not wealthy, but they are proud of their heritage, and they're taking pains to preserve them. And even if it means just only in their own family.
Yeah, I think some of the details with this sort of older generations and in their daily life, even especially among the ordinary people, you know, people who don't really have their names engraved in the history books or any of the stones out there, I think you can sort of relive their life when looking at this sort of souvenirs or things passed on generations from generation. From my point of view, it's more interesting to look at what the emperors are wearing, or the emperor's teapot. I would love to see what an ordinary teapot 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. I think that means sort of relates more to me instead of, you know, that's the royal family's heritage.
Yes, because it's more commonly used. It was more commonly used. It represents that period of time. And we're only talking about these items, these quite tangible ones, because we get to experience them a little, and yet we have experienced a little bit of the quite intangible ones. That'll be the festivals, the performances, the singing and dancings. One thing I always think about is how talented and artsy people who are not Han ethnic group. No offense to Han people, I'm a Han person, I love Han people, but I think Han people, or maybe just me, am not
most people we know
are not that good at singing and dancing. We're not
cheerleaders. This country, you know, that's what they say online. You know, 55 cheerleaders are singing and dancing, and the Han people are cheerleading in the background.
Yes, that's the thing. And in 2006, festivals and art forms such as the Miao Sisters Festival, the Boye 8-tone seated singing, the Dong Tours, and the Shui Ethnic Duan Festival were inscribed on the first batch of China's National Intangible Cultural Heritage List. It's something quite impressive and very valuable to local people, to the extent that I asked about another, it came to me, or we came across that topic while we were having the conversation with local people. We talked about a festival that they only share every 13 years.
Wow.
It's a really long period of time. That was because people believe that the Miao people, the Miao ethnic group people, they have been traveling or moving or even migrating quite a lot in history. And they find it hard to find a place to settle down, to start a life. And even in places like Guizhou, you see it's very mountainous. It was very hard to reach. And once they settle in a small village, it's even hard for them to find another village, to visit another village. It's just that complicated, traffically speaking. That is why for them, they believe every 13 years or once a zodiac circle has passed, they need to find a chance to report back to the ancestors, telling the ancestors where we are now. Are we thriving, or are we struggling a little bit for this, you know, short period of time, 13 years? And that's the way they communicate with their ancestors, because they find it hard to, for instance, for Han people, we would visit the tombs of our ancestors
every year
because it's always there.
Right.
But for Miao people, it's harder than that, and they created a festival for that, and I find it very beautiful. And previously, the festival was quite serious and a little bit enclosed because they want to be very respectful. They want to report the news to the ancestors in the most serious way possible. But later, with the development of technology, with Miao people here in Guizhou talking more and more to people outside, with internet, you report to your family every day, if not every hour if you want. They find it, maybe we can invite more people to our celebration of this every 13-year festival. So they started to invite Miao people from all around the world to come here to Guizhou and to celebrate the festival with them.
If people were willing to organize such an event to invite migrants to another country back to this country, then this is obviously a major event.
And it's a huge celebration.
I know.
Yeah, that's how these people, they dig their roots and they honor their ancestor and they respect their own culture.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about traveling here to Guizhou, meeting local Miao people, stealing a little bit, just a little bit, skill from their silversmith. What are some other key words to think of Guizhou? Well, when you think of Guizhou, because there is definitely one that I've been heard about a lot even before coming here, and it has nothing to do with the beautiful and diversified culture. Take a guess. Data center.
Sure. No. Oh, you mean these power monsters?
Yes.
That are supporting, for instance, iCloud or Huawei Cloud or what have you.
Because my clouds would tell me where they are, and they say they are the clouds in Guizhou, or they are over the clouds of Guizhou, and I am always curious, and I am super jealous and I'm super jealous of Feifei and Yushan because you've visited one of the data centers.
Exactly. It's on the outskirts of the city of Guiyang, actually.
The provincial capital.
Yes, the provincial capital, and they have like this massive new district established for the purpose of gathering a lot of the data centers around the country, and we are fortunate to visit one of them.
What it's like?
Because, you know, when it comes to data centers, one of the big concerns is about the security. You know, people's data on probably a lot of your mobile apps are stored in these data centers. So they want to keep it secure, not leaked. So they're very careful when it comes to visitors. We were able to visit like one of the buildings within those massive data centers. I think they have like 3 or 4 buildings only for storage of data, and they're still building another 4 right now. And we're only allowed into one of them, and we are only allowed to see the outside of the machines, not...
Did you meddle with my data?
I don't have a chance, frankly. They are very sort of sealed inside of a very large box.
Right.
So that only professionals, only people, staff working on these machines are allowed inside. And also they want to keep the machines healthy. I was quoting here because the temperature needs to be within the right range, and also the humidity of the air also within the same range. They're also keeping away, for example, dust.
Right.
And also
and power surges.
So
fluctuations.
Not everyone is allowed inside. Apparently,
fancy and bragging.
So did you see shelves and shelves of servers?
Yeah, there were, according to the experts there were over 3,200, they call that smart cabinets that's stored individually in different rooms, and it's all sort of locked up, but I see like staff walking around checking the temperature in each room. They said that each room, in order to keep the smart cabinets just in good shape and operable, it needs to be contained at precisely 25 degrees Celsius. No higher, no lower.
Oh,
and
like
also,
human beings.
yeah, there's a huge, taller than me size of a fire extinguisher outside of each and every room, just in case any accidents happen. So that data center, they really pay attention to securing the data that's being processed, collected, and stored in their smart cabinets. And based on how they told us, it's like they're dealing with clients, customers from all around China, there's companies storing their very valuable data, and warehouses storing their own records here with them as well. So it's like a big, I was joking with Feifei earlier, it's like a big kindergarten, where each of these companies, they send their kids to the kindergarten and give them a smart, they give them a smart watch to keep you in good shape. Oh, you're in good temperature, right? And just calling them,
taking care of the babies.
Exactly. So it's like a big kindergarten for data storing.
And also they have like cameras so that their clients can check on their precious data 24/7.
Now I can imagine the clouds on top of Guizhou. They're very high-tech looking in very precisely controlled temperature rooms, and they're being taken care of. They're in the shape of babies. Now I have updated my imagination over these data centers. Speaking of data centers, in this day and age, we all have numerous, uncountable amount of data on the cloud in our personal gadgets. And people often talk about how power consuming or energy consuming these places can be. Are they trying in any ways? Because I cannot imagine I can imagine how hard it is to operate on a greener mold. So are they trying?
Well, that's precisely the reason why Guizhou can be the place for data centers. Because geographically speaking, I think we can tell from the past couple of days that Guizhou is not very hot. Even within this time of year, it's approaching summer. Beijing is approaching 40 degrees this week, I think, 35 something. And Guizhou is still very cool, and it's like that. It's like this all year round, which makes it perfect to store data, to store your data here, so that you don't need to spend a lot of energy for cooling down the temperatures around those machines.
To keep the temperature within reasonable range.
Yes, because when it comes to the storage and also those data cabinets, they can't be stored in a very hot place, and they can't also be stored in a very cold place. So they need to be kept within a certain range all year round, and Guizhou is precisely a very perfect place for that.
And many of these data centers, they're also using renewable energy and clean energy to run their data center. And the area that we talked about, the place we visited in the city of Guiyang this morning, is called Gui'an New Area or Gui'an New Region. And that place is particularly designed for more of the green energy to be used in order to secure the development of the local green database. That's what they call. And also I heard that the one we visited this morning is just one of the 10 that's operable as of the end of 2024, and there are overall 20 of such databases right there in Gui'an New Area in the city of Guizhou. So that's something that the local government and also the entire country as well that's been trying to work on say a national basis.
I've got this question about the data centers. I'm not really sure if you're allowed to answer them, since you're the privileged people who can visit data centers that are very sensitive and secured, and they make sure no private data is revealed. Super jealous. But my question here is, what are they doing with the data they have? Do they only store them? They gotta transfer them back to the owner, I assume. What are some other things they can do or they are doing, if you can share that with me?
Well, I think first of all, visiting data centers is definitely not as exciting as trying silversmith. That's for sure.
Feeling a little bit better.
And the second is that these data centers are also sort of upgrading their technology. As we know, AI, artificial intelligence, is definitely getting traction at the moment, and everybody in every sector, in every industry, in every country is trying to leverage this new AI technology. So they are. So traditionally, they're only storing, transferring, and also processing those data a little bit. For example, one of the engineers gave me a very vivid example, is that the photo that you store on your phone that sometimes are showing is on the cloud, meaning it's not downloaded on your phone. And we are trying to open that photo. You need to tap it, and take some time to open that photo. That
Sure.
means that photo is stored in one of those data centers, and when you tap on that photo, the
wake it
data
up.
was transforming back to your phone, and that's the reason that it needs to take a few seconds, sometimes even minutes, if the internet is not that perfect.
I'm
So
getting more,
storage and transmission.
Yes.
There's the basic service that
Yes.
they're providing.
getting more forgiving about not being able to show my friends the precious picture of my kid as soon as I want. Now I understand the logic behind it. But I have to ask.
Is that, or you spend more money on the phone with bigger storage unit?
I do that too, but you still have to download it anyway if it's on the cloud,
Right.
on the beautiful clouds over the city of Guiyang, or yes, over the city of Guiyang. But I'm curious, because if they're only doing storaging and transmitting, compared to the possibility of them also processing and even computing with artificial intelligence, would the energy consumption be the same for these two different situations?
Of course not. Imagine like a computer you use at your home, and that's one case. And when it comes to storing the data, probably that would need like thousands or even hundreds of thousands of that home computers. And when it comes to AI, that means we need to multiply hundreds of times of the hundreds of thousands of computing
Wow.
capabilities. And that means more energy.
Where is that energy from?
Well, they are taking like two paths at the moment. One is that they're trying to use their energy efficiently. For example, when it comes to their air conditioning system, they are, for example, the cabinet Yushan just mentioned. One of the designs is to cut down the amount of cooling air conditioning it requires to cool down those machines.
How?
Sure.
That they are sort of, first of all, they need to concentrate all the hot airs generated from these machines in one place, and then transform them through sort of a tube to another place to cool them down. So instead of trying to cooling down those air 10 times, they're sort of cooling it only one time.
All right.
So they're sort of cutting down the needs for air conditioning.
So better techniques to make it more efficient,
Yes.
to save energy.
And also the air conditioners they use are very different from the ones we use at home.
Ooh.
Yes, they're using a sort of a more higher end of technique that's said to be able to cut down the energy used by about 30% per air conditioner.
That's a lot.
So yeah, that's a lot if you're considering they're having like tens of thousands of those air conditioning in that only in that data center, and that's one path. And another path is that with the power grid itself, the electricity they use, that will comes to, you know, these data centers, they don't generate power themselves. They're relying on power plants, and those power plants are sort of operated within the province. So the province of Guizhou, they are like over 50% of the power is from a renewable source.
Clean energy.
Hydropower, yeah, solar or wind. And so so you can see that the whole grid is greener every year, and that means the power they use at data centers are getting greener as well. And also that also means those green electricity is not sort of a privilege for data centers. Everyone in this province, in the city of Guiyang, is using greener electricity.
And greener electricity, like Feifei shared, means the energy is from solar power or from wind and
From hydro as well.
Hydro as well. And as I understand, it can also be from a certain source that we don't usually think of, which you also have the privilege to visit the other day.
Oh, you mean a waste?
Yes.
A waste plant? Yeah, that can be a privilege if you count that one in. It's also that plant is sort of transforming waste into power. I think that plant was able to power 200,000 homes per day from the waste they collect from like 4 districts and also 3 counties under the city of Guiyang alone. You can imagine that the amount of waste we generate living in cities. You know, they're massive. And the technology they use, I don't want really get into the technical terms when it comes to how to transform the waste into power, but the gist is that they are sort of filtering the water out of the waste first and then burn them, and then they take a few technical steps to sort of pollutant.
Try and remove the polluting elements
yes,
from
within
the
those
garbage.
within those burnt waste, and then from the burning and the steam coming from the burning, they sort of power the power generators, and that's where the electricity comes from. And also, when we visited that plant, they're also cooperating with factories, for example, Geely or a beverage factory, Wahaha, on providing heating sources to those factories. That is another source of sort of feeding back into the industrial chains within this city.
It's a more nuanced way of utilizing resources, because one thing that we failed to mention when we introduced Guizhou province is that it's not a very populous part of the country, and it's certainly not a very rich province in resources in its most common sense. I mean, we can see the view obviously is very spectacular and breathtaking, and the air is clean, the water is fresh, but there are many other resources to power industries to begin with, and also given the scarce population, you can't expect huge industries to emerge and really grow strong in the region. But it's interesting to see how the region is leveraging other resources.
Exactly. As you know, like we just mentioned, Guizhou is very mountainous, and from a traditional industrial point of view, that's definitely occurs, because you don't get to build roads more easily. Yes, as flatlands. Yes, but I think in today's term, it's also a blessing. You know, with the mountains, you can generate the amount of hydropower that can be generated is unimaginable. So I think, well, depending on how you look at it, Guizhou can also be a very resourceful place when we are looking at from a different lens, instead of just, you know, industrial development lens.
That's quite right. With the change of the society development stage, with the change of people's perspective, the same old thing starts to feel different for people. We talked about local people before doing the show, and they say agriculture activity, agriculture laboring is definitely still one thing that they value quite so much. It's besides, previously, it was their way to bring bread or bring rice or bring the delicious fish we've just tried this evening onto the table. But now, with almost all the households, at least here in the Xijiang 1,000 household village, Miao village, they are engaged in tourism activities, in starting a Airbnb, a very beautiful one, and starting a local restaurant with the local delicacies that we have been enjoying for 2 days, making me thinking about making this business trip longer because they're just so delicious. Trying to figure out different ways to make their very own products as souvenirs that you can take away home.
Right.
They're doing all these things, and they're still doing a little bit of agriculture.
Yeah. About 80% of the population in the village, they are engaged in some kind of tourist-related activity. Could be restaurant, could be cooking, could be taking photos, could be doing any kind of service. But still, the staff are proudly claim that agriculture is still pretty much part of their life, and it's part of their tradition. They like to keep it alive. And as compared to before, like New Holing said earlier, they're trying to make ends meet by growing mostly rice. Now they're doing it for fun, and they're growing a lot more fresh fruits, including, for instance, plums.
Wow.
Plums, peaches, oranges, and blueberries, and strawberries.
And I can sense the very proud tone when they say, we don't sell those, we grow them by our own hands. We have
Totally
to
organic.
enjoy them ourselves. So it's definitely a lifestyle, and you get to see still their passion and their love for the land that have been helping them, supporting the family generations after generations. Only now it's a way to take the pressure out of the busy day, to get connected with nature a little bit, and to get some organic food that can be quite expensive for the family. So things change.
Yeah, exactly. We also visited a park, actually, a wetland park in the new city center of Guiyang this afternoon. And they also mentioned to me that I think the urban dwellers themselves, they are also changing their way of life. Because before we used to call, cities as concrete jungles,
Sure, yeah.
Of course. But right now, I think at least in the city of Guiyang, it's very green. And especially in the new city centers, they only start to build that city center around 24 years ago. So around the centerpiece of that district is a wetland park. They have like 3 lakes, sort of interlinked with each other, and they also have a lot of trees inside, and it's very popular not only among local people but also among travelers. I talked to a couple of them, in a working day afternoon. The park is still very crowded, right? It's not very very quiet park in a sense that there are people jogging in the park around the lake. They're just I talked to an auntie. She's visiting her son working in that district, and she just took a stroll around the lake and admiring the nature. And the staff also told me they are also designing the lake to sort of be an education platform for children. So that children, especially living in cities, they can be very distant from the trees, the bugs, the water around them. And going to the park, they are not only allowed to run on the grass, touch the trees, catch the bugs, they're also allowed into a part of the lake, safe part of the lake, to see what's in the water, the small crabs, the small fish, what kind of grass grow under the water. So touch the water, and that's more sort of concrete, more making sense to them when instead of showing them a video or a photo. You see, that's a beautiful lake. That doesn't translate into anything in their minds, instead of just letting them touching those lake water.
It's quite important. I've come across this research saying that if kids are connected with the nature in these ways, if they can touch the soil, if they can touch the water, the percentage of healthy germs on their skins would increase significantly, make their entire health system much better.
Resilient.
Yeah, it's not only important mentally, it's even important physically. And I get to see that because the rate of good or excellent water quality at the exit sections of major rivers remained 100% here in Guizhou. They've done their work and they've seen the results. And it's also reflected on people's way of living, on people's level of happiness. I think people are quite joyful here in Guizhou. I'm not really sure if it's because the majority of people I met are tourists from around the world and enjoying their vacations here in Guizhou, but definitely everyone is enjoying the life in their different ways. We are wearing like this and doing the show and without even being blushed a little bit, because we are not the only ones. We've seen people walking on the streets wearing like this, taking beautiful, beautiful pictures, because there are multiple shops here providing these services and people get to enjoy it. And we're not talking about those young ladies with perfect skin and perfect figure. We're talking about people in their, well, when they're 8 years old, little kids are doing the same thing. We see ladies in their late 60s or 70s are wearing traditional Miao costume and taking pictures. And it's amazing. They're enjoying their lives. They're traveling to these places with perfect air and great temperature. And yeah, that is the kind of scene I really enjoy observing when I'm traveling with Roundtable. with all of you.
Yeah, I can see how the locals are beginning to really take pride in their environment and in their heritage. Perhaps there may have been a stage of time when the locals might complain about not having access to better opportunities. What good use can we make of this beautiful environment? Can we make use of our heritage if we are still trying very hard to make our ends meet, to bring bread to the table? Now that with development presenting better opportunities and better ways of life to them, better qualities of life, in fact, to them, they can really begin to take pride in the way that they've managed to keep the environment clean, and also in the way they've managed to pass their heritage to the future generations. And honestly, we need them to have that pride, because one thing that we failed to mention earlier is that Guizhou is on the upper stream of many rivers across the country, if not outside of the country as well. So we need not only efforts, but also sense of responsibilities and pride to help the locals as well as the rest of the country to work on the same goal of keeping the environment clean for the rest of the world and for perhaps our future generations as well.
We can continue for another hour, but it's only the second day we're here in Guizhou. We've already experienced so much, we've seen so much, when we have so much to share. That being said, any particular side of Guizhou that you think you haven't seen just yet, or you look forward to visit, or something you want to discover, you want to find out the hidden story of this amazing province?
Actually, I'd like to discover a little bit more about the spiciness in their food. As someone with
Against the complaint,
a delicious answer.
Oh, right. I mean, as someone with a very weak digestion system, I'm starting to show symptoms of how my body is very not cool with the spiciness I've been taking for the past 2 days. But yeah, you know, we were talking to one of the interviews earlier today, and according to her, the spiciness in Guizhou is that unique kind of spiciness,
right,
combined with fragrance of the different spices that they mixed inside, even the oil that they spill onto the peppers. While the spiciness in other parts of China, in Sichuan, for example, that's the numbing spicy, and in Hunan and Hubei province, that's just the pure hot chili pepper, the aggressive spicy. So here we're also discovering the taste of Guizhou, and I'm very much looking forward to discovering just how different and what are the nuances of their spiciness.
And how your
100 layers of spiciness.
Oh wow!
And how your digestive systems will adapt and reconcile with the spiciness.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yourself. See the limits.
We will definitely find out, because there will be one stop of Roundtable's China Horizon trip that lands on a county specifically famous for their pepper industry.
Right.
You will taste it, you will see it, you will talk about it, and in the future you would definitely share more fun stories about both the spiciness and perhaps you're getting more resilient digestion system.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Good luck.
How about you, Fei Fei?
Well, I haven't really experienced a lot of the cultural experiences you just mentioned, so I'd love to experience some of that. And another part of very personal experience of me is that I want to jog more around the city a little bit more. I tried one of the Qianling Mountain. It's very beautiful, also challenging because of the hilliness. You know, going up and down, and in a jog, you know, that 50 kilometers is very different compared to 5 kilometers, very different from the 5 kilometers I did in Beijing. And also there are monkeys alongside you, so that's another...
In the park?
In the park,
in
staring
the
at
city
me.
center?
Actual monkeys.
Staring at me while I'm jogging.
They're not throwing anything to you,
No,
are they?
I didn't carry anything. I don't have any water bottle or any snacks. Looks at it, so I'm not really attractive to those monkeys.
No eye catching.
Yeah.
Eye contact.
Harmonious between human and other species. A good thing.
Yeah. So I want to jog a little bit more because there are hundreds, not hundreds. There are dozens of parks within the city of Guiyang. and also along the river of the cities, and the Nanming River is also a very famous route for joggers. So want to experience more, explore a little bit more of the jogging side of Guiyang, challenge it a little bit.
I would be interested in getting to know more about the people here. I've been here 3 times, and so far I've enjoyed the infrastructure a lot and the culture. And during my all the trips I've made here, I've met very good people. They're warm, they're accommodating, and they are very helpful. And I like to know their stories. And just like the grandpa who proudly showed me the headdress that was passed on through his generation, I still remember him. And the actor that invited me on stage to perform, and the people who helped us to make this trip happen. I think there are very good people around here, and this is so far has been very therapeutic. And I just like to be able to connect with the people here, and through them, and perhaps get to know more about Guizhou.
As for me, I want to discover some of the less popular industries here in the province, because we talk about the endowment of the province, we talk about the long history, the diverse culture, the very beautiful and splendid cultures of different ethnic groups. These are kind of like the endowment of the province. Yet people are super smart. They are creating something out of nowhere, and they're getting more and more successful in those industries. I want to know that story. I want to know how come they can upgrade the factories and they can upgrade the industry so that they can be so successful. They can be the home of 1 out of 7 guitars in the world. I want to know Guizhou's guitar stories, and Roundtable would cover that in the future. And that brings us to the end of today's Roundtable. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, which is Guizhou. And hopefully you can let us know whether or not you have been here previously, you have your personal own stories about Guizhou province, and hopefully let us know what interests you the most, so that we can go to the places and find out the stories that's specifically told for you. I am Niu Honglin with Laiming, Yushan, and Fei Fei. Here, Roundtable is on the road, and for this stop, we are in Guizhou province. For future episodes, we'll be covering fun topics here in this amazing province, but we'll still be your familiar Roundtable show. At the same time, we will be China Horizons as well. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye-bye.